Ladies and gentlemen, we are going on a quest to better every single team in the Premier League. From Arsenal to Wolves, we are solving every team's problems with just one easy fix.
I don't want problems!
I asked you guys over on Twitter, if you're a Premier League fan, how you would change the shape of your club, and this is a definitive way to make your club the best that it can be. If you're going to enjoy this video, feel free to slap a like on it, and of course subscribe if you are new to the channel. Do feel free to subscribe, it really does help me out, and a lot more of you are unsubscribed than actually subscribed. But let's get into this one. All right, we're going alphabetically. We start with Arsenal. A lot of you guys clearly are Arsenal fans, and there was a wide variety of options here. But there was one overwhelming majority answer, sending Alexander Zinchenko to Venezuela, a player who's won multiple trophies, multiple Premier Leagues, playing at Manchester City, but obviously as a bit of a bit part player under Pep Guardiola. This Don, he can't defend. I do apologise, Alexander, but they've got him tearing up every single time he comes up against a semi-competent winger with over 77 pace on FIFA. Also, I've got goalkeepers that can't concentrate and strikers that can't score, but defenders that can't defend really does start to take the biscuit. There's not a crazy amount that Arsenal really need to do. I think a new striker is definitely something that would fix them as well. Gabriel Jesus' lack of clinical goal scoring cannot be allowed to continue, but I think that's something they should focus on fixing in the summer transfer window when there's more options available. Now, don't get it twisted. Obviously, Jurriën Timber just signed for them in the summer, and then obviously did his ACL immediately. That is bad fortune. Timber going into this back four will improve it massively, because Zinchenko just is not the guy. Now, second of all, we've got Aston Villa, and this one is really tough, because out on the pitch, there's not really anything you could specifically say that would fix them. I mean, they're already overachieving massively. The only thing I can suggest, picking up Villa Park, cloning it, and then moving it to every city in the UK. When these lot play at home, they're a different animal compared to when they play away. If they had their own Villa Park in Manchester, they're not losing that game to United. Just pick up the grass and put it in Piccadilly Circus or something. Every London club you're beating. Next up though is Bournemouth, and I can't lie, with them again out on the pitch, they're doing very well at the moment, and recruitment has been great. A lot of young players coming through the door, like Tavernier, like Kirkeged, the left back. Alex Scott as well has just started to burst into the team after injury problems at the start of his time there. For me, this is a bit of a left field one. Field, like literally speaking. I think they honestly benefit from a little bit of a stadium expansion. Now, what I will say is I've not done a crazy amount of research into the council logistics of the Bournemouth area. Obviously, they've had a rapid rise through the divisions from League 2 and Eddie Howe's original spell. But yeah, I think that's the one thing, because I look at Bournemouth, and if they want to really complete themselves and morph into that mid-table team that survives relatively easily in the Premier League, like a Brentford, we saw them obviously build their new stadium and move into that, and a capacity of 11,000 in the Premier League is tiny. At Brentford, and again, this is going to be a weird one, kind of like Arsenal, because this is a position they technically, well, tried to address in the transfer window when David Raya went to Arsenal. A goalkeeper. Guys, this Fleckendon is not the one. He was good. He was at Freiburg, I think, before, and he was actually pretty good for them. Or whenever I saw him, like, the 4 times I'd ever watched Freiburg before. He is the worst goalkeeper in the league. Like, and I'm not even saying that to be harsh. Statistically, he's actually the worst goalkeeper in the league. He's conceded almost 8 goals more than he should have done based on XG. At the halfway stage of the season, that is shocking. But yeah, a goalkeeper that can actually save things every now and again would be solid. For Brighton, and Roberto De Zerbi's already come out really and addressed this one, maybe a wing-back would be decent for them. It's mostly because of injury problems. Tariq Lamptey hasn't stayed fit for longer than 7 days since he was in year 8. Bervis Estupiñán's back from his injury now, so that's great at left back. With Joel Veltman now injured as well, I think a wing back would be helpful in the January transfer window. Burnley. Man, I'm inspired by the way that Burnley play football. They got promoted, you know, they played some nice football under Vincent Kompany, and they were like, you know what, lads? We might not be as good as the teams around us, but we don't give a fuck, mate. I don't think there's any point changing managerially either. You got a manager there that can maybe oversee a project. Got a lot of young talent there that is going to develop and going to get a lot better. So if they do want to survive, if they do want anything to prepare them a little bit more for the next time they're back here, if they do get relegated, just get some Premier League experience, lads. Because I look at that entire team, there's some great players like Trafford, Koleosho. Barely anybody has actually played in the Prem before. And yeah, if they were to get relegated and then get re-promoted, then suddenly if they've got like a key core of 2, maybe 3 players, a centre-back, a centre-mid, and maybe a wide player or a striker that actually have played in the Premier League before, they'll be a lot better suited suited than they were this time around. Now, next up, we got Chelsea. How long have you got, lads? Owner, players, staff, fans, FFP law. I know there's a lot that is a problem here at Chelsea, but the easiest option ultimately is the ownership. Todd Bowley and the people that are employed, especially in terms of recruitment, I'm sorry, they just don't know what they're doing. There is absolutely no plan. There is just a hobcobbling of players together in a changing room that's not big enough. There's still... Do you think Romeo Lavia actually gets a chair when they do team meetings? He sat on the floor on a rug. Malo Gusto gets a beanbag, if he's lucky. There's just too many players. There's too many cooks in the kitchen. Ultimately, they are doing badly, right? They're 10th in the league. The calendar year they just had is abysmal. But I do think with the young players they've brought in, there is going to be a level of improvement. Things just have to blend together, but they need to stop getting in a situation where everything needs to blend together. We're halfway through the season, and I reckon Robert Sanchez and Nicholas Jackson haven't had a full conversation yet. There's no cohesion at all, and that all comes from the scattergun approach that they've had through recruitment, the fact they continue to just buy young Brazilian dons. You need players for the here and now, lads, not another 17-year-old off the streets of Rio de Janeiro. Crystal Palace, simple one really for you lot. Score some more goals. And I know that's probably the most obvious one, and it doesn't really come with a backup plan, apart from maybe bringing in a new striker, which is maybe a little bit harsh on Odsonne Edouard. Palace are not putting away as many chances as they should be. They're not creating as many chances as they should be either. And that probably comes down to Roy Hodgson, which was another fairly popular choice here. And it's a pretty similar story for Everton as well. A goal-scoring forward or winger. But ultimately, if you take away the minus 10 points deduction, like, it's not actually been that bad of a season for Everton. They've struggled a bit more recently, and I think they need defenders as well. Can't believe Michael Keane still plays in the Premier League. It's going to be hard for them to get a Richarlison now, but if you stuck Richarlison in that Everton team, they're not, you know, they're doing a lot better. They're underachieving their XG as a team by like 5. Fulham, I'm going to sound like a bit of a broken record here. Another striker.
Well, you just knew that was going to happen.
Don't worry, lads. I'm not just here saying, oh, if you have more strikers, you get more goals. Football is a lot more complex than that. And this isn't actually a starting striker, because I think Raul Jimenez has actually been pretty good. When Jimenez was out, after that red card against Newcastle, Fulham's backup strikers are like League 2 level. Vinicius stinks. The other Don, I saw him once, stinks. Ben Brayton just went to Sheffield United, actually. I think that would have been a great pickup for Fulham, to be honest with you. For Liverpool now, take Darwin Nunez to yoga classes. Improve his composure, just calm him down a little bit. Nah, for real. I don't know necessarily. I think player-wise, it's not a gaping hole. Endo, like a DM, would have been an option, and that probably would have been the answer about 2 months ago. And that maybe still is the answer in terms of somewhere that we can improve on the pitch. This is going to be a bit of a weird one, right? But I genuinely think youth recruitment for Liverpool, and also just like the bringing in of young players. You know, I mocked Chelsea earlier about the fact they bring in Brazilian wonder kids all the time. We don't ever do that, really. To be honest, it's probably because of the lack of investment from FSG. We only have about enough to actually spend on first team players, let alone dons who are 17 years old. But I don't think our youth setup is actually good enough to fall back on in that regard. I know if you look at the likes of, I mean, Harvey Elliott we signed when he was a kid. By Chaitic, we also signed for, I think it was Celta Vigo when he was a youngster. But in terms of like youth actual graduates, you're looking at Trent, Curtis Jones, and maybe this season Kwanzaa. I think if you look at some of our counterparts, especially the likes of a Manchester United, they're also just of a higher level on a more regular basis. For Luton now, and it's ultimately, lads, I'm not gonna lie, I love the meme, but it's probably a new stadium. You know, I know you've heard about it a lot. The tunnel for the ground is someone's corridor. The home end gets 2 bars of Wi-Fi off some don in his back garden. But move to a slightly bigger ground combined with potential parachute payments this season, or just general Premier League money if they do stay up, and you've got a lot more stability there. Their recruitment is so good. Their wage bill is so low. Financially, they could definitely afford to do that. Man City is another pretty difficult one. Clone Rodri, to be honest with you, because every time he's injured, it's probably just moving back to the system that Pep sort of cooked up at the end of last season, but like playing it as he was before with Stones in that role. Different story on the other side of Manchester, because for United, and take your fucking pick, mate, at risk of buying a Norwich scarf outside of Old Trafford, the realistic answer is the ownership. But for the sake of being different, you know, the ownership is slowly changing, so I'm not gonna say just the Glazers. I'm actually gonna say recruitment, guys. I think, again, it comes down to the umbrella of ownership and who's being hired in the right places, etc, etc. But some of these deals that are happening at United are like, genuinely, they could well be bank fraud. We're talking pyramid schemes, offshore bank accounts, guys, because Anthony, for near enough 100 million euros, is one of the worst signings of all time. And I don't know why Like, he was never a £100 million player. Whoever's coming up with these figures is not good at their job, because the fee for Casemiro and the contract length for a guy whose legs were always going to give up on him 2 years into the deal. Rasmus Højlund, why are you signing him for £70 million? It immediately puts loads of pressure on him. Because I get it, they're going out and finding Erik ten Hag's men. There's a lot of players that he wants, and they're doubling down and backing the manager. I don't think he would have wanted Antony for €100 million. Newcastle, not gonna lie, I did forget to do Newcastle, having to edit it back in. Although, obviously, things are looking bad and looking bleak right now, it is ultimately because of an injury crisis. Eddie Howe is a great manager, made some really astute signings, given the money that you've got. Obviously, very easy to make astute signings when you've got all the money in the world. I think the one thing they can improve upon is Miguel Almiron. He was great for FPL guys, starter last season. A lovely man, I'm sure. But I think that's like the one glaring like hole in the team. And that's fine. Almiron was there during the days of Newcastle not being owned by Saudi Arabia. So it makes sense that he's a player that needs replacing. Keep him around. I still think he's got a part to play in the team, and I think the fans generally like him. Nottingham Forest is a little bit tough. I think for Forest, it's probably just improving them defensively. In goal, Matt Turner, I'm not sold on him at all. I think just one quality defender would kind of transform them a bit. It doesn't matter where in the back line. Getting towards the end now, and Sheffield United is another one where it really could be a lot of things. Moving aside the squad, because the overall squad is not ready for the Prem. So there's no point me saying, oh yeah, well, you could get a goalkeeper, because then the attackers, defenders, and midfielders aren't good enough either. But the reason they ended up in the predicament that they're in right now is because they couldn't tie players, like big players, down to important contracts. But like Iliman and Dai and Sander Berge both left on pretty small fees, purely because they were going into the last year of their contract and didn't want to be there anymore. Spurs now, and if we're being realistic, it's the owners, it's Daniel Levy, but to be honest, he's kind of slapped recently. The signings, you know, under Ange have been really, really positive. Richarlison was a bit of a stinker, but they've managed to unlock a little bit of Brazilian in there somewhere. He's got like dual nationality now. He's like half Angolan, half Brazilian. But Van der Veen, quality. Udoki, quality. Maddison, obviously quality, but you knew what you were getting with him. And even just outside of that, like even Brennan Johnson as well has been pretty good, to be honest with you. So I have no problem really with the players on the pitch. For what they are aiming for, their squad's actually pretty good now and relatively well balanced. Fuck it, better medical department. Hire like 4 more physios or something. Penultimate team, of course, is West Ham, and there were calls for the end of David Moyes at the start of the season, when they started a little bit, you know, slowly or whatever, but obviously 6th in the league now as I'm recording this, and suddenly that talk is gone, realistically, even though you can make arguments for more modern managers coming in and taking them a different direction. But that's not what's effective for West Ham. What's effective for West Ham is sitting back and taking your chance when it arrives on the counter. So players-wise, think they're calm. Again, recruitment's been pretty good. Been impressed by that Mavropanos guy. Kudus, again, has been insane. Realistically, it's either right back, because Soufal and Johnson aren't the one anymore. Controversially, it's just the stadium, bro. Find a way to bring fans closer to the pitch. But you can't do that because you've got a massive running track around the outside of it. I know a few West Ham fans, and they all say the same thing about like the contrast between Upton Park and then the London Stadium. How it seems to have like killed a bit of the soul when you go into an actual game. And finally, we have got Wolves, the side managed by Gary O'Neill. They've been unlucky a lot this season with VAR decisions, and that is my advice. Pay the referees, lads, because I don't know what they've done to the PGMOL. Anytime there's a VAR decision, you might not even be involved in the game. It's somehow a penalty against you. Because I'll be honest with you, Gary O'Neill is one semi-poor VAR decision against Wolves away from taking matters into his own hands. But there you have it. That is one definitive way to fix every single football club in the Premier League. If I didn't take your team seriously, I do apologise. It's probably just because I literally sat down for about an hour straight and couldn't think of anything. But let me know how you think you could fix your club down in the comments section below. If you did enjoy this one though, feel free to slap a like on the video, and of course subscribe if you are new to the channel. You can also follow me on social media. It is at @officialfng on Twitter and on Insta. It's a pleasure ranting at you guys today. Have a wonderful day, enjoy yourselves, and goodbye.